This video going to very quickly show you the static members and the methods, which is the first part of chapter number 8. We have talked about a lot before about classes. For instance, this is a class. By the way, I want to introduce this one. In order to introduce to static method and members to you, I create a new project called static class members, and I copy 4 files from the chapter file folder. The chapter file folder you see, let me see, where is it? Yes, here. In my case, I download all my chapter file to Module 1 in my download folder, right? Here, I choose. This is all the file we need in this this chapter 8, but I copied 4 of them because this is introduce static member and methods. So I copy this one, this one, this one, and this one. I create a project called static members, which is here. So I only use these 4 files. So don't be confused. If you want to do the same thing like I do, you can copy the file, create a new project, copy the file, and put it here, right? We don't have a problem. Let me see. We do have a problem. We need increase a little bit the font. I forgot that. So you can see it better. Where is the font? This is the font. Okay, the font size, right? Yeah, I want to be a little bigger. Yeah, much better. For instance, this is a class. The countable is a class. This is a class. The class name is countable, right? And we also know the file name has to be the same as the class name. And in a class, we have a 2 type of thing. One called members. In other words, we can also call it fields. Another one called methods, right? This is a method. This is also a method. How do we tell this is a method? Because it has a parenthesis, which will take arguments later and have an open curly brackets and close brackets, open bracket. So we know these 2 methods. And also this method is a special one. It has the same name as the class name. We call this constructor, right? So this is all, even only 1 method and only 1 field. We know this is the class. And there is no method in this countable.java because this is a definition. It's defined and class. And class is a coding representative of a real world object, right? When we talk about object like a computer, human being, vehicle, that object, real world. But when we use programming to describe a real world object, we call it class. So this define and class. The one static demo, that one have a main method. We call this application class. And in this class, we create 3 objects. We call that object, or you can call it instance. 3 different instances from the reference data type or class data type. Countable is a definition class, right? So we are all familiar with this. And the way to initialize an object is just like this one. The class name, variable name, new is a keyword, space, and call the constructor name, right? If you don't have a parameter need to pass into, just leave the parentheses open. This is similar like we did before for the primitive data type, right? So int is data type, countable is a class type, age is a variable of integer, object 1 is a variable of countable, right? 24 is the value for age variable, and new is a create an empty object, right? So this is a similar thing. I just want to explain it to you, so I delete it. So after we familiar with 2 classes, the definition and application, right? And we can take a look. we have a data field or members here called instance count, and we beside private or public the accessible specifier and the data type, we have a keyword called static. This is something we need to talk about today. Static. What static member is, right? In other words, what's the difference between a non-static variable? Like we are already familiar with this, right? For instance, if I add another field in this class called object ID, then usually we should have two sets of method with it, right? I'm gonna write this one, and I can use the get method and set method. This is what I'm talking about. I'm sorry, this is a bad spell. Remember that? The get, the bad, not the bad, the get, the set. In other words, the get method for this non-static method should be something like get public int. Why int? Because I need to return return an ID. The ID is integer type, so I use int, right? Get and curly braces. This is return the return this variable, right? The get one should be like something like this. Void, because I don't need to return anything. Set, I mean the set method. You should have a integer, the ID, for instance. I use the name, the ID, to represent the ID you're gonna pass into, right? In this case, if you pass me ID, I want to set it, then what happened to my finger? Object ID should equals to the ID, right? So this is a set method, this is a get method. We call these two instance method because there is no static keyword in front of the method name, right? So this is usually what we do, right? Non-static member, static member. So what's the difference between these two? What's the difference? This is the key issue. So after you define this countable here, when we go to here, we create three different objects, right? For three different objects, we're gonna have a three different object ID. For instance, object 1 have ID 001, object 2 have a 002, object 3 have 003, something like this, right? But which means each object here, 1, 2, 3, have their own version of object ID. In other words, everybody have their own copy of ID. But if you define an instant variable, like in this case, instant count, the count will be, take a look at the constructor. Whenever you create an object, this count will be increased by 1. After 3 count, 3 objects being created, the instant count should be equal to 3. In other words, I need a global variable to remember how many objects I created. And that variable not related to any specific object. We call that instant variable. Does that make sense? In other words, this variable, the object ID, is related with each object, but the instant count is not related with any of the specific object. It belongs to the whole class. In other words, the whole class only maintains one version of the static variable. That's the difference. Let me repeat again. The non-static variable, every object maintains their own copy. The static variable, the whole class, only have one copy. Right? Only have one copy. No matter who get it, you're gonna go get that class level variable's value. For instance, if I run this, you can see I will get a number of 3 displayed on my result. 3 instances of the class has been created, right? Because yes, 1, 2, 3. Because why? Because whenever I create an object, the constructor being called, this variable being increased by 1, right? So for instance, if I remove the static verb, the keyword before the definition of the variable, see what happened. If I go here, I run this again, the static demo, I run it again. 1, 1, 1. Why it cannot remember how many objects I created? Let's go back to the definition. The reason is, after you remove the static, this variable becomes to the non-static variable. In other words, non-static variable, everybody maintain their own version. In other words, everybody, when you create an object, they increase their own instant count variable by 1. That means no matter how many objects you created, 1 is always the result. So this explained the difference between the static variable and non-static variable. Let me put the static back to again. Static again. Then you run this again. It will be 3, right? If, for instance, I want to create another one, I call it 4. Then I run it. I don't even need to check the result. It should be 4, right? Should be 4. Should be 4. Let me increase a little bit so you can we increase? Yeah. Control up. Yeah. Very good. See, the 4 is displayed, right? So I hope this video explained the difference between static field or member and the non-static. In one word, the non-static variable, every object maintains their own copy, and the static variable, the whole class only share one copy. That's all for this video.